Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am the Crypto Crow, and today I'm going to do something I don't do very often at all, and I'm going to be doing a film review. I just finished watching Civil War, and this has been a wild ride, and I'm going to cover my thoughts on this movie. I also want to give a bit of a shout out. So last night, my wife and a bunch of friends and I were out at a strip club, actually. And it was a special event. And one of you out there approached me and obviously recognized me, a local Florida police officer. And, and he said, "Hey, could you give us a shout out, to support law enforcement?" Yes, I absolutely support law enforcement. And I do appreciate everything that you guys do. And I actually happen to watch a lot of videos on YouTube about like body cam videos and things. And the things that you guys have to deal with is absolutely insane. There was a day many years ago where I always thought it would be great to be a police officer, and I'm glad I didn't, to be honest with you. I know many police officers from the local. I used to have a friend who was on the federal level, and just the things you hear, and it's I had one friend who was a Cincinnati police officer, and he quit the force. I used to bounce in bars with him when we were young, and years later I ran into him, and he was a cop, and then I ran into him again and he was no longer a cop, and he just said, it's like everything's good until you run into a situation. And then, at least in Cincinnati, he felt that if you have a situation that the department, the city, you're just not supported and you're basically on your own. And he left before anything happened. So, I absolutely do support the sacrifices that each and every one of you guys make out there on the job, and just everything that you have to deal with on a regular basis. I know, especially now at my age at 46, I wouldn't have the nerves to handle any of that. So thank you for everything that you guys do. And it's very nice to meet you. Now, as far as this movie, Civil War, I'm going to tell you right up front that it is, and it pains me to say this, but it's one of the best movies I've seen in a long time, but for different reasons. There are two elements to this film that I think are extremely important. Number one, it's 100% propaganda film. Number two, it's actually wildly edge of your seat entertaining. Now, if you take all of the projection and the attempts at being Nostradamus out of this movie, it is actually a really, really, really well done movie. It pulled me through every emotion I could imagine. And it was a very grim tale. And it was very, I feel the film is trying to be predictive. Okay. And the premise of the film, that stars Kirsten Dunst, and there's Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spaney. I've never seen her before. She was really good. She's basically a very a 23-year-old journalist who idolized Kirsten Dunst's character. The stuff that happens in this movie, I would say that it's almost like a cross between Nick Offerman, who plays the president, which we're going to get to. This might be a fairly long review if I'm going to cover every detail about it, but and then there's a lot of people that there are a lot of people in the film I didn't recognize or know. A lot of newcomers, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. But everybody was really good. Wagner Moore was fantastic. I mean, he was very, very good in his role. I don't see this gentleman. Okay. Yeah. Stephen McKinley. So anyway, the premise of the story is it's supposedly in the not so distant future. I'm going to guess maybe 8 years from now. And the idea is that the president in power becomes a dictator of sorts, I guess, and enjoys his third term in office, and civil war breaks out, ultimately between the left and the right. And you can tell because of the symbolism and the things that they do to show who's on what team. You'll find a lot of the left forces have rainbow haircuts, Like there was a sniper duo and they both had like rainbow dyed hair, and they had like rainbow painted fingernails and things, right? To basically show that they're on this side. And then you had like the more official military forces of the government. And it was the idea is that the president at the time doesn't want to leave office. Okay. And I'm guessing if they're having a third term, and the journalists, which do we even really have journalists anymore? I don't even think that's a thing, but this movie definitely works to portray journalists as these extremely self-sacrificing people for the sole purpose of getting that story and getting what's really going on in the knit and grit. But I'm like, I don't even know the last time we actually had any real journalists anymore. Let's be real about it. But the plot line for the film is that this team of journalists are on a trek through the country and everything that's happening during in the midst of this civil war, because they want to interview the president. And this president apparently kills anyone that gets close to the White House, and it's like everybody's afraid, and it's the most mind-blowing thing, but ultimately the film looks to be projecting this sense of fear that's basically saying, if this individual ever gets into office, it's almost like when people ask the question, like, if you could go back in time and kill Hitler as a baby. Okay. I mean, that's basically the premise of this film, but it's trying to say, this is what's going to happen if this person ends up back in office. And this is all of the horrors of everything that's going to break out in the country. And the lengths they go to tell this story, which, I mean, to be honest, is very, very well done. This is the best propaganda film I think I've ever seen, because it makes you... I feel like I'm very much in tune as to what's going on and what's real and what isn't. I'm very much like, I just watched Bill Maher and Megyn Kelly, who I absolutely fell in love with her just in that one interview. And you really get to see in that interview how little Bill Maher actually knows, right? Like, he has these super strong opinions about Trump and about politics and about this and that. But when it comes to any real details of substance, he's oblivious. He's talking about how the insurrectionists had killed police officers that day. That didn't happen. And Megyn Kelly was very quick to not only basically interject and say, well, that didn't happen, Bill. That didn't happen, Bill. And she was very calm and very cute about it. And he'd be like, what do you mean? Of course it didn't. And she's like, no, it didn't. There was a police officer that died of like natural causes, like days after the event. But the media at the time tried to portray everything as though there were police officers killed in the line of duty in the defense of it wasn't real. That never happened. And video footage has since come out and released showing that just didn't happen. Narratives that they were projecting at the time were disproven with actual video footage once a lot of that started to come out and get released. But the media doesn't cover the other side of that. Right? They cover the narratives that they create for the people to believe so that they can control the thoughts and minds of everybody that's listening or paying attention to anything that they're putting out. This movie is a direct extension of that, because right now we're seeing this narrative being projected that, Orange Man is like Hitler. Orange Man he's bad. He's going to get into office and he's never going to leave. And, he's going to be a dictator and he's going to, send us all to the gulag and everything else. But what's funny is that a lot of the stuff that I see that the left is projecting onto the right now I'm sorry to say this, but I'm seeing it as everything that they're doing in real time, while they're saying that if this other guy gets into office, this is all the stuff he's going to do. And it is a scary, scary time. And I watched this movie because I wanted to see, I knew it was going to be a propaganda film, because I saw on Valuetainment that, listen, this is a, he was talking about the film. And I'm like, I want to see this. I want to see what their attempts are to try and project this grim outcome should Orange Man get elected again. And because the movie felt like a very loud cry of desperation. And it was very much a loud cry for, if somebody just did this, then then our worries would go away. And I'm thinking to myself, what group of individuals would work so dramatically hard at trying to keep someone out of office that they know isn't a part of their group, a part of their, this term that's often thrown around is deep state, right? Like this, it's a term that's used to basically say these career politicians that they enter poor, if they ever leave in 30 years, they leave significantly wealthy, hundreds of millions of dollars wealthy, doing jobs that pay 80 grand or 100 grand a year. How is all this a thing? How does this all happen? And so many people just kind of blow it under the rug. They shovel it up under the rug because they think, well, that's just how politics are. Politicians get in the office and they make a lot of money for a lot of reasons nobody really seems to understand, doing a lot of things that are illegal for the majority of the public, and somehow that's okay. And we have this system today that I believe has been the system for decades. I just think that now there's been somebody willing to step up and speak out against it all. The way the media controls the narratives in the public, right? Calling out the media for the lies, the constant lies. How many lies have we uncovered in the last 8 years alone that the media says one thing, but the truth is obviously dramatically different, if not the polar opposite of what they're trying to spew all over the place? And why is it that nobody seems to get that? Nobody seems to accept that you can't believe these headlines. You can't believe anything anymore because everything is a projection. It's a smoke and mirrors game to try and rein the control back in that they once had. Because there was a time when you didn't get into politics and you didn't progress or win in politics unless you had the favor of a lot of the other politicians. And ultimately in a game of win at all costs, which is ultimately the game of politics. It's win at all costs. If you choose to get into politics as a career goal, your goal is to win no matter what. Whatever promises you have to make, whatever hands you have to shake, whatever deals you have to make behind the scenes to like get the funding for your campaigns and so forth and keep that career moving forward. That's all that matters to them. The people are third or fourth place, if at all, in the grand scheme of politics. Because if the people actually mattered, we wouldn't have a significant and consistent number of votes in our system against what the public wants or needs. And it's always more in favor of the donors, the people that are pulling the strings behind the scenes, funding individual campaigns, and ultimately supporting the politicians that are supporting them. This isn't about the people. The people are ultimately pawns on a board that are able to be moved. And some people move much more freely and much more easily with much less effort than others. And a lot of times these people, all of us, are pawns in a grand scheme game. Now, here's the thing about this. And this is when I watch this movie, I know they're basically trying to say, this is our future if this guy gets into office. Boy, if you want to be a hero, if somebody just got rid of this guy, we would be better off, right? And it was a scary, scary, scary message the way everything unfolded in this film. And it was almost like Walking Dead meets, I don't know, 24 or something. I don't know. That's probably not the best analogy or similar or whatever. But That was the vibe I was getting, because these journalists are traveling through state to state, and they encounter all of these different crazy circumstances and battles and all these things that were really just, I mean, it really was extremely well done. I mean, I give them credit for a job well done on this film. If you're able to watch it with a clear head and like understand what it is, and you see through that, it's actually just wildly entertaining. I mean, it really is. It's a great movie, but knowing the goal of the movie, it felt dirty to watch. I mean, honestly, it felt like they were trying to get in my head and ultimately really get into my emotions, which I felt was a masterful job, because it did. It made me feel a lot. But as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, wow, they're really making these journalists like they're just sacrificing their lives and their just everything to try and get this story and cover what's going on, right? But in reality, we just don't have these journalists. Where are they? I don't know if we've had journalists, like real journalists, like people that are out there really digging and putting themselves in any danger to cover the facts of a story. I feel like anymore, all we get are staged photo ops with people like AOC standing in front of a fence, acting like she's, oh, I feel so terrible. I wish I could help you. I'm going to help you. And there's like, no, and then there's like nobody on the other side of the fence, right? I feel like we don't really get any journalism anymore. We just get a bunch of talking heads reading the same scripts that basically start at some building somewhere in the world, and then it's all filtered down all the way from federal, like the national media, all the way down into the local media. And there's so many clips now where they're like popping up on the screen with every local news station, and they're all saying the exact same thing, right? There's no journalism. It's all propaganda today. And I really don't watch much of it. I'll watch interviews more often than not. But a lot of the interviews that I watch are even just kind of, everything is so wildly controlled today. Excuse me. I'm not sure what else to say about this film other than this movie made me feel, based off of what I've seen over the past, I don't know, even 10 years, based off of what I've seen about how narratives are created, controlled, perpetuated across all mediums to establish a sense of X, right? Whatever X is, whether it's an emotional connection, emotional disconnection, they're trying to like push, pull, poke, and prod all of us daily, being bombarded, right? And one of the only real news outlets anymore that allows people to tell their truth are apps like TikTok, which we know is also becoming a target for the government. They don't want us to be able to communicate in that way. I'm sure this video itself will likely be shadow banned in some way. It probably won't get a lot of views. It won't be recommended or any of that stuff. That's just what I'm used to. But the thing is what this movie didn't make me think, oh my gosh, this is our future. Somebody must act now to save us all from this world of hell that's coming in years. Because listen, Trump could have done a lot of crazy shit when he was in office the first time, and none of that happened, right? Like everybody said a lot of the same stuff before that they're now saying again. The only difference is now the left have really shown their ass, in my opinion, by all of the things that they're doing to try and keep him out of office, right? And in doing that, if Trump wanted to, and he wanted to come in and say, hey, you know what? I'm passing this bill that's making it illegal for the media to lie. That right there would, and then like set like real definition of what is a lie, what is propaganda, take back the, well, I won't even get deep into that, but I mean, it wasn't that long ago where it was basically made possible for the media to say whatever the hell they wanted, regardless of facts or anything. And why that happened, I think now we're seeing. But at the same time, this is the one thing that I know about politics. Everything is controlled. Everything happens for a reason. I feel like almost every word spoken, every act made, down to the I'm here, the not pointing and using your thumb because of everything is so controlled that nothing happens for no reason. And I know that Trump was a lefty before he ran for office. And I know a lot of people are not going to agree with this. I know a lot of like Republicans and right-leaning people are going to think I'm being crazy. But I know that on a global scale, and then this could be just me being naive, but I know that on a global scale, the agendas of groups like the World Economic Forum, a lot of these elitist groups of people that have money, connections, power, you name it, and the way they all congregate and basically lay out ultimately their goals each year, what their focuses are going to be, how they're going to change these things and realign things in one direction or another and whatever. But then these agendas are ultimately played out in countries like Canada. We've seen it in Australia. We've seen these things play out all over the world. And it's very difficult for me when I think about the difference between Trump or Biden or any presidential candidate for that matter. I feel like every time we have a new president, there's always a lot of noise. There's a lot of right or left noise, right versus left noise. There's always a lot of bullshit, a lot of garbage that's surrounding anybody that's in office, right? But we're always generally moving towards the same place, a place of less freedom, more taxes, less control over our own lives. And it's all just like a window that's closing with every term. And it doesn't matter who's in office but the point I'm trying to get at is I am not, and I'm not saying this because of this movie at all. But I believe that the entire system is trash. I mean, absolutely trash. I don't care who it is. And we have been all programmed to believe that we just have no choice but to pick, one of the two necessary evils, right? Like, oh, well, we've got these two people and we just have to pick one, even though those two people ultimately are boiled down and selected by how much the media is able to control our perception of these people as we move forward through these like different election phases. Right? It's what person has won out in public favor after all of this money has been spent, all of this work has been done to try and put any one of these people on a pedestal. And I don't care if you're talking about Trump. I don't care if you're talking about Biden. I don't care about who you're talking about. Okay. I don't believe nowadays, and probably for the longest time, I don't believe that any particular person gets into the Oval Office unless they're controlled in some way. I just don't. Because I see all of this narrative around Trump and all of the fear. Now, is there a chance that if Trump gets reelected, he puts the lockdown on false media, fake media? And if he was going to do that, why didn't he do that before? He could have done something. Why didn't he? He didn't do any of that shit. We still have rampant propaganda constantly every day of the week. Why was nothing done? During a time when he was always talking about fake news, why didn't we get any of that? Why didn't he do anything to change any of that? Which tells me that there's more going on than we are told as society, as people in society. We're meant to keep attacking each other. We're meant to hate each other and build a wall between two sides, that those two sides can be more easily controlled with their own propaganda over here and more propaganda over here, just to keep both sides riled up and ignorant as to what's really going on. While we're focusing on, I always make the analogy of, we're always focusing on the keyhole, but not realizing that, the keyhole is keeping us locked in, not keeping other things locked out. You know what I mean? We're not seeing what the door is actually to. We're just focused on the key. And that's how I see a lot of this stuff. But there is a big part of me that wonders, when we look at what's happening in California and we look at what's happening in New York and Pittsburgh and all these big left focused cities, the destruction, the drugs, just how everything is going to hell in these places. But then I see this movie where it's like, okay, now the rest of the country looks the same way, but it's this guy's fault, right? And I'm like, well, but that doesn't add up to me. And this is why a part of me wonders who is controlled opposition, because by this movie's standards, it's basically saying if this guy gets into office, this is our future. But we have somebody else in office right now where this is practically what's happening today in some of these states controlled by the people that are like basically putting these kinds of movies out. So what was the overall the gist of this film to me is that one way or another, we're probably going to end up in this state. We're probably going to end up in a place of some form of civil war. The only difference is who is going to be blamed for it and what will the final outcome of it be? Whose fault will it have been? But to me, there's a big part of me that thinks that we're ultimately being, I know people like George Soros, these billionaire, people that they literally do everything they can to fund so many groups of activists, and I call a lot of them destructionists, because ultimately that's the way they put their message out, by destroying things and creating chaos and panic and fear, and they always have some sort of righteous reason behind a lot of it. And all of it scares the shit out of me, because I mean these groups are generally very, very well funded, and they're always perpetuating some sort of false narrative, in my opinion. And even if it's not a false narrative, let's say that a lot of these missions or these groups do have a basis for their argument. Maybe there are some fact related to the way they believe or the fears or what they're trying to change. But for some reason, they always end up getting well funded and becoming extremely destructive and ultimately negate the very thing that they're trying to enforce change about. And this movie just made me feel like one way or another, we're going to end up somewhere like this, sadly. But it's not going to be because of this particular individual becoming reelected, but because this is the overall goal of the people that are trying to create these narratives to begin with. But this way, they have a scapegoat. And that is what I took out of this film more than anything. And I don't really know what else to say, but I mean, watching this movie really gave me kind of an opportunity to see through the eyes of the left and what they're trying to really say and what they believe is going to happen. And I think they made their picture abundantly clear. This movie is scary. I mean, it really is. It's scary, and it's very unsettling because I see us heading in this direction, but I think if there's anything to be taken from it, it is they are going to do anything that they can to try and stop the system that has been in place for many, many, many years from being broken down. And this is all an effort of those in control expanding their control, utilizing the resources of those who put them in office to begin with, and all of the people that they are able to, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but believe in whatever their goals are or whatever their projected mission is to establish change throughout the world. And those that believe that stuff on like a more, we need to do this for the people. We need to move forward. I believe that there are a lot of people. It's almost like, you have, like I was talking earlier about police departments, police officers, politicians. There are always people that go into positions of power because they want the power to make change for the better. There are always, it's why I thought about it. I'm like, I would be a really good cop. I would be that kind of cop that I wanted to build relationships, even with the criminals, to build relationships and trust bonds with those around me so that everybody knew that I'm just here to do a job, but I'm here to do a job in a way that lets you know that I still respect you. I still appreciate you. I value your life. I want you to value mine. Let's just try and cut down crime, right? And then I realized it's typically not the super clean, good-hearted cops that do well, because sometimes you really do have to fight fire with fire. And you know, they always say you have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, right? And I think that when you get into politics with these kind of righteous reasonings or these ideals and these goals of where you want to make positive change for the public, for the world, you want to make a positive difference in the way things are done, but then you start getting caught up and you start realizing, I just made this kind of shady deal because I really believe in this, but in order to get what I really believe in done, I have to accept this, and I have to help this other guy who's probably kind of crooked, you know, pass this, and then he'll give me support for what I'm trying to do. And the longer you're around, the more hands you have in so many cookie jars, and then everybody wants what they're owed. And then before long, you realize you become a corrupt politician like all the rest of them. And then from there, it's a matter of, well, I'm so embedded, and you don't want to let that go. And then when you're in that position, you're willing to do just about anything to maintain that control, that power. And ultimately, you just wake up one day and you realize you sold your soul, and there's really not much you can do to get it back. And now that you've sold your soul, you've got nowhere else to go. You might as well keep pushing forward, and you're going to do anything in your power to maintain that position. And if anything, from everything I've seen in politics since I was conscious enough to be aware, I feel like you only fail up in politics, because the more mistakes you make, the more bad decisions you make, the more controllable you ultimately are, which makes you very attractive for those that need more powerful puppets in play to maintain their overall agenda. I feel like Civil War was an absolutely entertaining, if not scary as hell movie. I would suggest everybody watch it, if for any other reason than to get inside the minds of those that are trying to project these ideals and these fears into people, and understand that this is absolutely a movie about trying to program you, make you feel a certain way, and hopefully, maybe, if they're lucky, make somebody crazy enough to act on it. And that scares the shit out of me. And quite frankly, as good of a movie as this is, and as much as it's veiled as like, oh, this is a fictional movie by this, you know, about this dystopian future, this is a plea for help. And this is a group of people really, really grasping in desperation for somebody to do something to save their asses. Because I do believe that if there's any chance at all that Orange Man Bad isn't a controlled opposition, I'm going to hazard a guess and say he's not going to make the same mistakes the second time that he did the first, and allowing everybody to just rip him to shreds with a lot of lies and falsehoods and things. But then again, who am I? I don't know. I'm just some old guy on the internet. All I can say, go watch the movie. I actually bought the movie. It's available now on Amazon Prime. Watch it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Like, what does this movie make you feel? What did it make you think about? It definitely made me think. And if anything, it scared the hell out of me, but for a lot of different reasons than I think the movie was trying to. And that's all I really have to say. And hopefully this doesn't get me, I don't know, penalized on YouTube, but I just felt I wanted to say my piece. This is just my opinion. It is what it is. I love each and every one of you, no matter what side of the fence you're on, politically or otherwise. I really do just wish that it were more easy for all of us to communicate, have a conversation, and have disagreements without everything devolving into an insult battle. And, you know, quite frankly, if your beliefs can't be backed up by actual facts, you have to figure out where you went wrong. You have to figure out why you believe the way you do so strongly with really not much evidence backing that up. You know, we can all feel a certain way. We can all have our own opinions about things and about life and about society and what's good or bad or right or wrong and all of that. but there's still always facts. There's still always the real deal details and things. And when we neglect those details in favor of an emotional narrative just because it's the way we feel, but it's probably not merited or based in reality, we have to check ourselves. And I think that is a point where we should be more free in discussion. Each and every one of us is just a pawn in a much grander game controlled by those with a lot more resource, power, and knowledge about each and every one of us. They know how to pull our strings. They know how to keep us divided. I wish, and I would love to see more of an effort to try and reunite, come together on common ground and grow together from there so that shit like in this movie never happens. Until next time, guys, grow your coins. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.